I am so excited right now. I have chills. I almost played our fight song because on Throwbacks this week, we have the Women of Troy USC head basketball coach, Lindsay Gottlieb. What is up, Coach? Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is super exciting.
First of all, before we dive into the year that you guys are having, and I know it's not done, and just the state of women's basketball, because I think it's never been at its highest peak right now. You're from New York, and Jerry's from New York. And since we've done this podcast, I've learned more about New York Knicks and Yankees than I want to. So my question to you really quickly is, are we a Knicks fan? Are we a Yankees fan? Are we a Mets? Are we a Nets? What are we?
We are Yankees and Knicks all the way.
Oh, there you go, Jerry. There you go. Every week we do this podcast, there is something about the Knicks that happens. It's always something.
As there should be.
Yeah, if you grew up with the same kind of torment as I did, but Matt's on some run, okay? Dodgers win the World Series, Luka's in LA, and now, USC beats UCLA, number 1 seed. He's on some incredible. LA in general is on an incredible run right now. I always say there's nothing better, like having lived in LA for so long, it's just when the vibes are right and high like this, it is the best city in the world. I really believe that.
Yes, totally. So as a New Yorker, you never lose those roots of Knicks. I mean, you were in that Patrick Ewing era as well, right? I mean, it was that's what I grew up with, but I don't feel like my LA grounding now. It doesn't feel as competitive, in the way that you think it might. Like my history, my childhood is New York, but now I'm all in. It was a little hard this year with the Yankees Dodgers thing, but generally I feel like I can be both an LA sports fan and a New York sports fan most of the time.
Well, I was at Game 5. I'm a diehard Dodgers fan, so I was at Game 5 in New York, rubbing it in. Jerry does have courtside New York Knicks seats, and he just took his son a couple weeks ago. So Jerry's living a good life over there.
I don't own those seats. Okay,
Coach. First regular season title since '94. You kind of see all the stats. 26-2. The Big Ten tournament starts this week. Most likely going to be a number 1 seed. I want to jump ahead, but you guys are having an incredible year. Just, can you sum up just the season so far? I mean, it is. I've been to a couple games. I've felt the buzz around this team. Obviously, you have the star in Juju. But for you, for this team, what makes this year so special?
Yeah. Well, first, just to go back a little bit, when I took the job, what an incredible place USC is, Matt, and what it should be. But let's be real, there were 500 people in the stands, and I had recruits saying, other coaches tell me you'll never get fans here. And so now it's never lost on me when I walk in that building and there's 10,000 people and it is buzz. And so that's the overarching thing that I'm like, that's really incredible to have been part of that trajectory. But for this year in particular, we had Juju returning, her freshman year kind of spoke for itself. And then we added the number 1 recruiting class and the top, portal transfer, Kiki Iriafen, and another really big transfer in TVO. And all of a sudden there are these expectations. Like here we are launching from upstarts last year to in the real national conversation. And we didn't shy away from those expectations. But I'll tell you, it has been not harder, but it's been a challenge, right? Like you don't throw talent together and all of a sudden be as great as you're supposed to be. And so I think this year really is what I'm most proud of, is that the team has committed to figuring out how to have great individual players that become a really cohesive team. And I think our depth was on display against UCLA. I think our star power was on display. I think our toughness was on display. And so that to me has been the most significant thing, that we took a bunch of really good people with high expectations, and I hope we've delivered. And now, March and April is when, the real stories are told, and we hope we can keep it going.
Yeah, Matt was mentioning like the Knicks courtside and all the celebrity. That game, I mean, there was some people in that building, and whether the road team or home team, it doesn't matter. That was such a huge run. Did you at any point? I mean, I know you're probably so locked in, or did even the players just look around and go, "This game feels a little bit bigger than it's just as important. Just feels a little bit bigger."
It was bigger. There's no doubt.
It was huge. Last year, when I looked across and LeBron was sitting courtside, I had to remind myself he's not here to watch me. He's watching the players. Crazy. thing. Michael B. Jordan came this year earlier, and Snoop, and we've had a ton of people. So by the time we got to UCLA this year, I think the players kind of expected. It's crazy. Like, I didn't even know until after that, John Legend was there, and obviously Cheryl and Reggie and Jason Sudeikis comes all the time. This sounds crazy, but like, it's kind of now, this is what people expect with LA women's basketball. How cool is that? It's really neat to be a part of it.
It's actually, I was thinking about this before this interview because it reminds me a little bit of my time back at USC when we weren't very good. Then Pete took over, and we obviously just catapulted into the national conversation a lot like you guys are doing. And we had at that time, Snoop has still been a big USC fan, Will Ferrell. It was always just a who's who. And it became, so people always ask me, like, it just became normal for us. Like at this point, just like, we just were like dapping up Snoop on the sideline, just became an everyday thing, which is crazy to say. And you guys are getting that, and much deserved. And it's so fun. Like when I went to the game this year, I was sitting next to, I got courtside USC women's basketball, Jerry. So beat that.
As you should.
Next to Juju's family, who's just hilarious. Like it was just really fun to be there and soak that up. And because I remember going, back in college, I went to a couple of women's games. Like it's just a different feel. For the celebrity thing, is there someone that, I know you're locked in, but that you were like, I would love to see this person across courtside? Is there someone that like you would just love to see at one of your games?
Serena Williams. That's been mine, where I'd be like, oh my gosh. And I just saw that she is now an investor in the Toronto Tempo, the new WNBA team, which is so cool. But I think we all have our different ones. I think Juju had one where she said, Sanaa Lathan, Love and Basketball, and then she came, so that was cool. I think Michael B. Jordan was a big one for some of our players, so that was neat. But for me, well, Serena and the Obamas. That would be my two probably top ones.
We're gonna get them there. This podcast is gonna get them there. That's awesome.
Obama, I think
was that game, you think, maybe one of the biggest regular season games of all time in women's basketball, if you really think about it, and because the rivalry as well?
I think so. Look at what was on the line, right? A Big Ten regular season championship. We literally had the same record, the crosstown rivalry, the national rankings. Definitely the biggest one that I've been involved in.
I've been following you for quite some time. I have some Cleveland roots as well. I married a beautiful woman from Cleveland. We spend a lot of time here now. But I think it was maybe like the Players Tribune piece you wrote, or I don't remember what, but I heard you talk about just how you're like a X's and O's nerd, right? And that's awesome. And I love that. Is it hard to like, I always wonder this with coaching and coaches, like, can you turn that part of your brain off like when you go home, right? I know you have kids, you have a family. It's like, or I don't think I would ever be able to turn it off. I think X's and O's is a fan while I'm here with my kids. My kids are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm wondering how Brunson's going to work with Cat. Like, I can only imagine what it's like for a coach who actually does this for a living. So what's that like for you, whether you're going into a big game like UCLA? Like, are you able to do it at work and then come home, or is it still something that comes home with you?
So when I go home, and the kids and the chaos, but like if I'm watching a game at home, I'd love to just watch games like a fan. So of course you think about what coaching adjustment they made or what's going on, but like my husband will be like talking about the coach and being a fan, or like talking about they should have done this or that. I'm like, can you let me just watch? Like, I just want to watch and see what happens. I don't care about the outcome. It's fun, So I try to shut off the analyzing of what was run and how they're defending a screen. You can't totally shut it off. Like, you're always watching, but I like to be able to watch basketball for fun because it's so different than studying your own team and trying to think about how you can be better or what we could do differently. So I like to just try to watch sports as a normal person at home.
There is zero. I get asked all the time if I would ever coach or get into coaching. I do love coaching. I love coaching my little kids, but when I coached Cole's flag football team, and this is true story. Youth sports is fun to watch. It's fun to coach at that age. And we were really good in flag football. And we won all these championships. And then you build rivalries within the league with other teams. And when he got to like 6th, 7th, 8th grade before high school, I would watch film of flag football games that would keep me. No, I swear. I couldn't turn it off. And my wife was like, what the hell is wrong with you? They're in 7th grade. And I was like, and I wasn't like a yeller or screamer, but I was just like, if I'm invested in this, I'm going to watch. I had sleepless nights coaching my oldest son's flag football team. So it is very hard to turn off. I want to ask you, Coach, about, Jerry mentioned the X's and O's, and you look at your career in UCSB, you led them to the NCAA tournament. Cal, I remember when you were at Cal and you had a Final Four run, I think, and then came to USC. So you've built and won everywhere you've been. Is there Pete's number one thing in building was just competition. It was like relentless pursuit of competing at the highest level and everything you did, which would breed success everywhere, right? From the starters to the backups, all those things. Is there an underlying ingredient for you on how to build a championship team?
I mean, I would almost say if his one word was competition, I would almost say my one word would be relationships. Like, you just can't do it anymore in college without having a pulse on the people. And so I think it's building relationships within your team, like player to player, and respect, and, how they interact with one another, and whether that is competing as well. And then within the organization, the assistant coaches and me and the players, I think there has to be an ecosystem of that piece of it before the X's and O's even matter. But then I would say the second thing would be just this attempt at excellence and what that looks like, because, this year we were pretty good. We were good enough to win even when we weren't at our best. And so it became about how do we create a culture where they still want to get better, even when we're winning. So maybe that's the competitive part that comes out as well. Now in the NBA, relationships still really matter in the NBA as well, but that's probably the most X's and O's I did, because you don't have all the other stuff. You're not going to class and you're not recruiting. So there was a lot of just like sitting around and X's and O'ing, which was incredible too. But college, I think the human relationship piece is just so important.
I love that you were all locked out before drafting Darius Garland. That was one of my favorite stories I read in a long time in the Players Tribune.
Oh my God.
You must have been freaking out.
We couldn't get in the building. I was like, wait, what's going on? It was awesome. But how about the Cavs now? Are you a Cleveland sports fan at all?
So, and Matt and I talk about this a lot because our kids are being raised in Cleveland. I will never give up the Knicks. I just can't. So I'm willing to give up, like, if they want to like the Guardians, I'll let it go. The Browns, whatever. Browns are Giants. They're going to be in sports therapy no matter what. But I just can't, like, the Knicks, no. Yeah. And the Cavs have been insane this year. Yep. Like, really, that game against Boston down 25 and then still coming back. I don't even know how they did that.
Were you on the staff when Luke was on the staff, Walton, or no?
No. So
you guys missed.
We missed, but obviously, he's really tight with JB Bickerstaff, as am I. Still. He brought on Luke, I think, when I left, maybe the year after I left. So
I think Luke's in Detroit now.
I got one more. You brought it because, like, I love what Matt was saying too about, like, everywhere you've got, like, how you approach a new, I don't want to call it like a project, but you're at a new place and maybe it's a place that hasn't been winning. And then you mentioned even like JB's with the Cavs for a long time. It kind of ran its course. Then he goes to Detroit, a place that hasn't won in a very long time. And JB was now like, he couldn't get the Cavs. And now they're on this amazing trajectory. So, there's so many moving parts when you get to a new job in general. So do you ever find it hard to, like, where do I start? Or do you always have a clear picture of, like, we start here and build out from after this?
I think you have to have a clear picture before you start. And for me, when I talk to young coaches or assistants who want to become head coaches, you got to take the right job for you, because I don't know that, when I was in the Pac-12, Scott Rueck went to Oregon State, who was at the bottom, and he built them to be really good. I don't know that I could have done that at Oregon State, but I could do it at Cal and I could do it, at USC. I think you have to know what your messaging is going to be. You have to know what it's going to entail. Is it a culture, fix? Is it totally starting from the bottom? Is it when I got to Cal, it was a group that was talented, but maybe it underperformed. And it was saying, we have what we need in this room. Now let's take the next step, versus here I had to, really kind of start over a bit in terms of establishing what we want to be. But you got to know what place you're coming to is a good fit for you to recruit to. It has to be authentic. And then you come in with a plan. And then, plans get expedited when you get a Juju Watkins to walk in the door.
Well, I was going to ask you, you come to a place and you see all the ladies behind you, Cheryl Miller and Lisa, some of the absolute greats to play the women's game. And then you have one of the greats now and who will be for the next 10 to 15 years. When you talk about a superstar, like I know you talk about her at nauseum, and people ask what it's like in this, and she's just incredible. I've seen her. I've told Jerry, I'm like, you have to see her in person. She's ridiculous. Like she's just ridiculous. And I think JJ Redick was at the game the other night, and he said like she's one of one. You're probably running out of adjectives to describe her. Who does her game remind you of? Maybe it's a men's game. You were on the Cavs. Maybe it's some of the all-time women. Like, who does she remind you of when she plays basketball?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Kobe. I know that sounds so
I love it.
crazy,
Yeah.
but it's not. Like I just think about her at her size, right? She's a 6'2" wing.
Strong.
Strong. She's a natural scorer. Her body control, the hang in the air, the take the contact. She's a killer, right? Like the Mamba mentality thing has it. And the defensive abilities. I mean, she just was named not only Big Ten Player of the Year, but on the first team all defensive. But then from a female side, I would say maybe some Maya Moore as well. Maya was just so smooth and utilized the inside-outside game because of the ability to shoot it and playing the post a little bit. But those are the two that I would most like in her too. Her game. See,
I'm a diehard Kobe. It's my favorite athlete of all time.
It was fun when Matt and I shot at USC and we did you said you watched it. I'm horrified that you watched our 3-point shootout, even though that was kind of the point.
I'm still upset with my score because I know I'm a lot better than that, but it's okay. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, no, we were on like a little bit of a break and then we went to go get lunch. Now, I didn't go to college really. Like I went 6 months. I already was like getting ready to move to LA to pursue acting. I never had that big campus feeling. So anytime I've gotten that chance to witness that, I always think it's pretty cool. So we go to get lunch and, all the kids I call them kids, young people. I don't want to sound too old. And then like just looking over at this young lady who's like a backpack and I'm like, oh shoot, there's Juju right there, like online to get some kind of salad bowl or something. Like you don't realize
it was so funny.
It was so funny. It was the most routine day for them, and I'm over here like, oh no, this is one of the best players in the world right now. And I forget that just like everyday campus life. Maybe it's because I didn't experience it, but that was pretty cool just to see him and all in their element, just going about their lives. It was cool.
I mean, I love that for her, right? Like you want them to have the campus life. I mean, there's so much of her existence now that isn't totally normal. But she's 19, and I think the other quality about her beyond the basketball talent is sort of the grace with which she handles all of this. Mm-hmm. She's all about LA and her community and the school. And she's completely humble and really a great teammate and beloved by her teammates. And then at the same time, she is becoming this really mega star. And, she handles that well too. Like she's kind of stepping into that greatness and she handles that like, hey, I've earned this, and at the same time is going to get her salad bowl, on campus.
Right, whatever I said salad bowl. I actually don't know what she was eating that day. I don't want to spread a false story.
I know she's like LA homegrown, and Urban Meyer always tells this funny story when he got Tim Tebow, and this was a long time ago, and it was signing day, and he was in the car, and Urban is very, 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 very intense, and Tebow was like the prize get, like he was close, and he was on the phone with him, and his phone died right before Tim was calling him to say he was going to commit to Florida. And this is when I think he probably did it on TV. I don't know, but he was calling him to tell him, Coach, I'm going to be a Gator. And it died. And Coach tells a story. He was panicking. He was like, I didn't know what to do. Like he was freaking out. Was it an easy recruiting process for Juju? Is there a story? I mean, I've talked to Lincoln about just in the NIL world, it's just some of the asks and demands from some kids, and I'm sure maybe more so in football, but like it's kind of wild. What was recruiting her like? Is there a funny story, or is there a story that you can tell just in recruiting that's just wild?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is, given all of the stories you hear now with NIL and all of that, for Juju, it was unbelievably small, internal. Like they didn't put things on social media. I always tell people, Juju is a hooper who has become a star. She is not a social media star who happened to play basketball, right? So she didn't put out a top 15 and then a top 8 and then a top 5. Like no one really knew with the recruiting what they were doing because they didn't publicize it. it was very authentic and getting to really know her and her parents, like the small circle. So that part, it wasn't like a circus with all of the outside stuff, but it took a long time, because I think they really wanted to do the whole thing. So, and there was, now she's got the documentary series that's now out on Peacock, but that was following it. So she visited us all the way back in September, and now this thing was stretching on. And she did do like a public announcement on ESPN or something, but to her credit, because she's just a good person, she said to her parents, like, Mom, I need to tell Lindsay, I don't want her worried anymore. And I was 7.5 months pregnant. I got, maybe 8.5 months pregnant, 8.5, because my daughter was born on October 14th. And so the announcement came closer to signing day. So she said, I need to tell Lindsay. So Juju said, can you talk at this time, this day? And I was like, let me go for a walk. So I'm like waddling around my neighborhood. And she said, she's coming. And I swear that like at that moment my water could have broken. I couldn't have.
You probably burst into tears. You were probably very emotional too. What a day.
I sure was. There were definitely tears. There was a public announcement maybe a week or two later, but she did let me know at that point. And I think, she and my daughter are pretty close. So maybe it's because, my daughter got a little shake in there.
and you still get her for 2 more years too. Isn't that amazing? Yep. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
It must be pretty wild now too, because we mentioned like the comfort of like being on campus, and I know like even playing UCLA, it's still a road game, but you're still in LA. Going on the road now with this team, everyone's kind of gunning for you. Those road games, I don't know if they feel like the most intense that you've been involved in so many, but I imagine traveling with this team is just may feel a little different. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is right, the newness of the traveling with sort of Juju and the team stardom, but also our first year in the Big Ten. So you're going to these places. But I saw some stat recently where whatever someone's average attendance was like tripled when we were there. So we played in front of, 20,000 in Iowa, 15,000 in Indiana. Rutgers averaged like 1,300 and they had 10,000 when we played. Maryland was sold out. And it's really neat. You're seeing a lot of Juju buns and jerseys in other places, and you see their fan base come out, in full force. So it's been really neat, to see that and be a part of it. And it's good for all of our players, right? I think it's really raised the profile of everybody. And that's kind of why you make the move to the Big Ten, to allow them to play in these big cities and big markets, in front of incredible fan bases.
I'm curious, Coach, because Caitlin Clark is sort of just help. I mean, there's a lot of women, obviously, and this has been the last couple of years, but Caitlin Clark really has become the face of women's basketball, and in a positive way, in my opinion. And she left last year, and in a way, Juju has inherited being the face of women's basketball. How have you talked to her about that? Did you ever talk to her and just give her a perspective? Because Caitlin deals with a lot of scrutiny, which she doesn't deserve. She's a hooper too, I think, and just loves basketball. But did you ever have any conversation with Juju on just, hey, you now are going to be the face of women's basketball, whether you like it or not, and how she kind of handles herself?
Yeah, and I'm with you on. I think Caitlin's been amazing. We saw Caitlin at the Wooden Awards last year, where Juju was a finalist and Caitlin was winning it. And Caitlin made a point to say, I had this sort of public attention for a year and a half, 2 years. Juju's going to have it for 3.5.
Right.
And Caitlin said to me, here's my number. Reach out. Let me know how I can help. How can I help her navigate? It was really cool because you think about it, who else understands what Juju may be experiencing other than someone like Caitlin? So yes, I think, with Juju, I've talked about how can I put things in place to let you be you, to let you, be at your best, but also help you navigate this. So we have talked about that. We had a moment right after last season where she and I went to a Dodgers thing. It was like the foundation thing, like a big fundraiser, but the team comes, and that really hit me where, you have all the Dodgers there and these fans are like screaming Juju's name, she's very recognizable with the bun and everything. And I'm like, wow, like this is a city of stars and she's a star within here. What's going to happen, nationally? And so I think she's kind of seen her life change a bit with it. But I think her family's put great resources around her just to allow her to be, a kid. But also I think she takes that on and takes the responsibility and understands it comes with being who she is.
It's a lot like when Jerry walks around and they say, Turtle, that's Turtle.
It's not quite the
same.
Get
it, buddy.
I don't relate to that at all. But you know what I did relate with? after the game when you mentioned that like your husband can't even come to the games. 100% that would be me.
Yeah.
Like I have a hard time. My wife was like a gymnast for a while. I have a hard time if she's doing a cartwheel on the beach. I'm like, oh God, I hope she sticks it. I completely, and you mentioned already, like when he watches games at home. So I don't know your husband at all. I completely relate to him. I would never I would shoot through nail. I would be a mess. I would be a mess.
He's like your more classic sportsman. I mean, Matt, he would probably talk to you for hours about USC football and, just, I mean, everything. Right. And so you add in like that now he knows all these officials and he's like, oh, you have this official on the game. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, he's intense.
He's intense. He's intense. It's very fun. So yes, he's all in.
I think it's great, Lindsay, because, you have 2 kids, right? Yeah, 2 kids, you're married, and just the role model that you are for a lot of, and I'm just like, we did a lot with girls flag football with our leagues down in Orange County. And I just, from an outsider, just like, I feel a lot of pride in growing that. I feel like you should feel a lot of pride in just what you are doing for the women's game. And I know nationally, and you're coaching, and I think you guys are going to win it all this year, knock on wood. You're going to win a national championship. But do you feel like, do you ever kind of take a breath and just be like, what you are doing? You're obviously, I mean, Juju, talk about Juju, but the team and the recruiting that this is, all of this stuff. I think it's really awesome to see what you're doing. Do you ever kind of pinch yourself and just say what your role is in helping women's basketball continue to elevate?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the main thing is, trying to just be present in all facets of my life. Like, to be a wife and a mom at home, to do this job, but also to integrate the two. As you guys know, you don't get to, sports is a lifestyle. You don't get to shut it off. My family's involved and they come here. But if I can do anything to show women or women's basketball that you don't have to sacrifice one thing or the other, I certainly have a ton of help. We have childcare. I have a really supportive administration, but I don't think anyone should have to sacrifice, if they want to be a mom and coach, or try to integrate, the two worlds. And we all have a responsibility, I think, with the women's game to continue to help grow it, because that's the stage that it's at. And even, when I was in the NBA, a lot of people asked, like, all I could do was show up as myself, right? And I only had only my son Jordan at the time, and we didn't have Reese yet, but I had to try to be the best coach I could be. I wasn't trying to be anyone else in that league. There was no one really like me, like the guys, and be who I was, and hope that opened up some eyes, as well. But coming back to women's basketball, I think, I take a lot of pride in just trying to do what I do well, so that other people believe that they can do it that way, and also to help grow the game too.
And wow, awesome. Did you upgrade your winter life going from Cleveland to? I'm in it right now. It's the worst in the world.
Jerry will send me videos. I'm like, God, you gotta get back to LA, dude.
I gotta get back to LA, coach. I gotta get back.
No disrespect to Cleveland, Ohio, but there's nothing better than LA. Well, good luck, Coach. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
I've obviously, we met a handful of years ago, but super proud of you and what you've done, and you're gonna keep crushing it. So, good luck. Bring home a title. Bring home a title. No pressure.
Trying to get like you and your squad, Matt.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
They live forever.
That's why Jerry and I are together, because we were roaming the streets of LA at the same time in two different.
2003. What a time.
So crazy. Well, it's definitely a thrill for me to be on with you guys. Come out to a game. We will be hosting the first and second round. So
I'll be there for sure. I went to the Kansas. Was that Sweet 16 last year?
Oh, yes. That was a great one.
That was fun. That was fun. That place was buzzing, man. That was fun.
I'll be there. Okay. I'd love to come. Okay,
great.
All right, Coach.
Well,
thank you.
You guys for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Take care.